Last year we initiated a debate within our counties on the championship structures in football, a discussion that we felt was necessary for our counties to express satisfaction or otherwise. And what emerged was that there was no consensus clearly on a better situation than we currently have. But what did emerge was counties want to keep the key elements. In other words, they want to keep the provincial championships. They also want to keep the strong element of a second chance, in other words, a qualifier. But they were open to some changes which might invigorate it. And last year, no real consensus emerged on that. But what also emerged last year was the counties in Division 4 had no appetite for entering into a second or tier championship. So when we put all of that together, this is a long association. We've been here over 130 years, so nothing was done in 1 year. We took all the best elements that were there in the proposals that came in from counties and from individual members and members of the public, looked through them all to see was there still something there, because we always said immediately after Congress the debate hadn't ended, it simply was a process that would continue. And put the Ard-Stiúrthóir, I asked him to make sure that he would look at all of these proposals and come up with the best that we could forward as a proposal. And that's all it is still. It's a proposal to our counties for invigorating the football championship, and I warmly welcome it. I think there's a lot of invigoration in this proposal.
Well, there's been a long-running debate, I suppose, within the association on the structure of the Ireland Football Championship. We brought in the qualifiers in 2001, but I suppose it's fair to say over the past few years, rightly or wrongly, many people have argued that the current structure has lost its lustre to some degree. So, as you know, we had a long debate last year. It was inconclusive in the sense that there was no consensus available as to what the best way forward was. But a few things were very clear, that the provincial system had to remain. The counties who were in Division 4, let's say, of the league did not want to play in a separate competition. And so it was against that background, I suppose, we sat down and looked and see, okay, is there a way within the provincial system that we can come up with a more competitive or more compelling championship? And that's the reason for this proposal.
If this proposal, for example, had been in operation this year, 24 of our counties would have finished their inter-county championship 3 weeks earlier than under the current system. 3 weeks would enable all of July and August for most of our counties to continue with the club player programme, which is at the heart of all of this. We've always said that a few extra games in our championship would never be an issue for us. In fact, the ratio of training to games is not correct. We need more games and less training. But we also know that we have to condense our championship. And within this proposal, there are clear guidelines there as to how the inter-county championship can be condensed and played under a shorter time frame. Another key win in this proposal is if you are a provincial winner or indeed a provincial finalist and you go to the last 8, there will then be those extra games in the provinces. It's a big thing that we will now be using those wonderful venues that we have in GAA that may only get maybe one game every 2 years, but that there will be more games at provincial venues for the highest counties, those that achieve the last 8 status. Plus the ambition is there for all counties. We saw it with Tipperary and with Clare this year. If this proposal had been in place, wouldn't it have been wonderful? Tipperary and Clare, for example, would have been in that last 8 programme and would have been guaranteed extra games against top class opposition around the country, which is good for everyone. So there's a clear pathway for all counties for improving within the proposed system. It would also do away with A and B in the current qualifier system, which hasn't really worked out well.
Clearly, we have made some changes in the competition structure up to the last 8 stage, mainly that teams in Division 3 and Division 4 in rounds 1, 2 and 3 of the qualifier will have home advantage. Secondly, we're suggesting doing away with the A and B division within the various rounds of the qualifier. I suppose most important of all, that at the last 8 stage, instead of going into quarterfinals, the 8 teams who have qualified will go into 2 groups. 2 with provincial champions, the other 2 teams being either the runners-up or the team that has beaten them in round 4. So we'll have 2 groups of 4 and those teams will play against each other. What it means is it'll mean 8 extra games, all of which will be played in the provinces, none of them in Croke Park. The first round of 4 games will be played in Croke Park, the remaining 8 will be played outside of Croke Park. It'll bring teams to places that haven't played before in the championship. We believe it'll create a huge enthusiasm and interest and a new excitement around the football championship. There's been a feeling, I suppose, all along that teams that won the provincial championship feel if they come to a quarter-final stage and lose, they too should be entitled to a second chance, and they haven't had that. And I'm all too aware of that from the experience of my own county Monaghan in recent years. But it means that if a team wins its provincial championship, at least they have 3 games then to assert themselves, and I think that's fair. that there's a fairness element. I also believe that taking the game to the provinces will be terrific. I think it'll create a great atmosphere in provincial towns. I think that when you come to the final round where semi-final places are at stake, there'll be massive excitement. And I believe that the proposal to play 2 semi-finals over the same weekend, football semi-finals, again will create a great excitement as well. And I think that it'll gender a huge interest in the championship. There is no magic bullet. I mean, if there was, I think we'd have found it by now. Certainly enough people have been looking for it. So it's a question of saying, look, okay, what can we do at the moment? Is there any idea that we can build a consensus around? Hopefully this is the one. I'm not saying it meets the needs of every single county, but we believe it's a fairly good stab at it, and that there's far more positives than negatives, and that it certainly would add to our championship if it's accepted. The proposal has gone to every county. They've been asked to consider it and bring back the views of their county to the next Central Council meeting in November. And what Central Council will then decide is if it wishes to put this forward as a motion to Congress. If it does, it will go to Congress in next February, and if it was to be passed, would come into operation in 2018.
The important thing within the association is that we make our own, we chart our own future ourselves. It is from within. The GAA has always been driven, and it's important that we have done it this way. I always wanted it to come from counties and with counties. They made their proposals last year. We've taken the best elements of their proposals and put it into a proposal, which now I would invite counties to discuss, to debate, to look at this proposal, and by November at Central Council they can then decide whether or not to forward it as a motion to Congress. I would hope that does happen. I think counties should look at this in a positive frame of mind. It builds on what they currently have. Every county can still aspire to win their provincial championships. There's no change there. Every county will still get a second opportunity because there is a qualifier second route there, but there won't be an A or B, so it'll be a more exciting, more open one. But running alongside this also, I feel, will be the need to bring a proposal to Congress to not have replays except after extra time. I think that's important. The counties should also consider that when they're looking at this proposal. And it's key for counties to also consider that we have stitched into a very important element of this proposal, that should there be extra revenue, and it's not about revenue at all, but should there be extra revenue, because there will be some extra games, that we would ring fence that for the development of our games in less successful counties. And that is a very important feature that I'd like all counties, both the successful and less successful counties, to consider, that we cannot advance our games in many of our counties unless we have some extra revenue to spend there, and this proposal can do that. But it would excite the general public. So I hope counties look at it in a frame of mind and realise that our top inter-county stars would be more visible, there will be more games, and there'll be more excitement. And I hope they approach it with an open frame of mind and by November decide to forward it to Congress.